Welcome to a special series of Anoki Uncensored, folks. We are featuring stories behind Anoki's 20th anniversary and the partners and the support that we have gotten regionally, nationally, and internationally. I am so excited because today we are featuring Zee TV, the pioneer and leader in South Asian entertainment across the globe. Joining me today is Mr. ASHOK Namboodiri, the Chief Business Officer of Zee TV, no less, to share a bit about the 30-year journey of one of the world's premier film, broadcast, and streaming platforms, serving up a vast array of content from the Indian subcontinent and its diaspora. Lovely to have you on, ASHOK, and I have been waiting to have this conversation with you. You're such a busy man, but we have pinned you down and we're gonna have the best conversation. I can just feel it.
Raj, thank you so much. Your introduction actually communicates all the enthusiasm that you've really brought to the table. I'm now really looking forward to this conversation.
Oh my gosh, I'm so glad. I am tickled pink that I get to partner up with Zee TV for Anoki's 20th anniversary. ASHOK, I can't begin to tell you. This is just truly a milestone and a moment that I'm very, very happy about. But what I want to do, ASHOK, is I want to give those people who aren't familiar with the backstory of Zee TV 30 years, that's no easy feat to have accomplished what you have around the world. So let's start here, ASHOK. What is the mission of Zee TV? Let's share that first.
Absolutely. I mean, I think it's a matter of great pride for all of us. 30 years ago, Zee gave India its first private satellite network. And from there, we've come a long, long journey. Today, we reach out to 1.3 billion viewers across the world. So it's no mean achievement, and it's something we're all proud of as a family. Before I go to the mission, Raj, let me tell you what our purpose is. And we used a very simple but very evocative word to really describe that, and that word is extraordinary. I think we really exist to create the extraordinary. And whether it is ideas, whether it is stories, whether it is journeys, whether it is partnerships, whether it's performance, that's what defines us, the word extraordinary. And that's really what we would like to be known as when people talk about Zee. Our mission is basically to tell stories. We are here to take Indian storytelling from India across the world, wherever our diaspora exists, and even beyond that, in the last few years, we've embraced this credo of being local for local. And given the virtue that we've been across the world, we have offices in more than 5 continents. We believe that we understand the local consumer, and we believe that we can connect with Indian stories with them in their own language, and that's the exciting, real part of what we are doing. So yeah, I mean, in summary, our mission is to take these stories across the world and really communicate, India as we know it to the rest of the world.
And oh my gosh, do you guys ever do that in so many different ways? Your content is so relevant across all generations. And that's what I feel is very unique with Zee TV as well, because a lot of platforms, they have a focused demographic within our community. You guys actually, you go across all age demographics and all types of interests. So let's talk a little bit about that, ASHOK. What makes Zee TV stand out in the marketplace amid such aggressive competition for viewership? Share that for me.
In the media world, things are changing rapidly today, and you mentioned it. Today we talk about linear, we talk about digital, we talk about social, we talk about connected TV, we talk about technology. I think what makes Zee special is the fact that we understand the Indian consumer the best, and there are so many ways in which that manifests itself, and therefore. While I talked about the mission of taking Indian stories across, what makes Zee special is that we put content up front. And we do that by supporting content with technology and with innovation constantly. But we are clear in our mind that at the end of the day, it's content first, and I think that's the most important thing for a broadcaster or a media house like us.
Absolutely. And, all those touch points, Ashok, are very difficult to be able to, accomplish, which is why it takes so much, focus, mission, and mandate. And you've very clearly identified what that is for Zee. So let me ask you this. This may be a question for, the early days. It could be a question of when social media and streaming platforms came into play. You tell me, what has been the biggest challenge that Zee TV has had to overcome, and how have you? I'd love to know that.
So I think one of the biggest challenges, and frankly, before I jump into it, I must say that my personal philosophy is that every challenge is also an opportunity, right?
Yes.
I would put it this way, that post-pandemic, we've seen an explosion in the media and entertainment world. We've seen an explosion of content happening. We've seen an explosion of technology transforming itself. There are various business models that exist today, and it's changing faster than ever before. And one of the challenges, or maybe the single biggest challenge, at least from where I come from, has been how do we quickly pivot ourselves to embrace those changes and make sure that we are still leading the curve when it comes to all the changes that are happening. That's why I said that it's in some ways embracing what the core of what we stand for, but at the same time being receptive to changes around the world, and that's really what we've been doing. So I think, like I said in the beginning, it's a challenge, but it's an opportunity, because if you can pivot yourselves, you can completely revolutionize the way you look at the future.
Absolutely. And it's so interesting because, this is a mirror to, Anoki, which is a very tiny company in comparison. But when we started Ashok, we were a quarterly print magazine. And we were one of the first, print magazines in Canada to actually completely pivot online, because we saw what was happening. We saw that the goal here was to make sure that we were where our consumer was, because those days had gone where you build it and they will come. You have to find them and make sure that you show up where they are. And this is why a lot of what Zee has been so successful in accomplishing in streaming platforms, in social media, in the technology space, with the traditional broadcast as well, because that is still a very fundamental piece of, ways that people like to come and consume content with Zee. So, I love when I hear these stories that it's so important to keep your finger on the pulse of what is going on with the community as well as technology. And that's something Zee has really been exceptional at accomplishing. So I have to ask you this question, just off the back of, what was the biggest challenge? What do you deem to be the biggest success?
Raj, you talked about Anoki's journey, and you talked about two key words which touched a chord. One is consumer first, and the other is community. And I think in the new world of media and broadcasting, we've built up great equity as Zee. We are really known as the home of South Asian entertainment. There is no disputing that fact. So platforms may change, content formats may change, technology may change, but if you've got your pulse on the consumer, you can still win. And I think one of the biggest successes in recent years has been that we've taken, my team has taken on new challenges. What are these challenges? We've taken on new markets. For example, Africa has traditionally been an underserved market vis-a-vis content. We've explored that continent. Earlier, we've looked at it as a monolith, but the fact is that Africa is actually 52 countries, and therefore each one has its own characteristics. And we've been able to go deeper into each of these markets. We've got a saying in our internal team, which is that we go wide and we go deep. And it stands for essentially the point that you made, which is that if you keep consumer first, then you will not take a broad brush approach. You will say, I will go down and I will customize my product, my offering for that particular customer whom I'm talking to. And I think that's what has been our single biggest success story, where we've won across markets. Today, like I said, we are present in 5 continents, over 190 countries. And we've been able to win this game primarily because we've kept the consumer at the forefront of whatever we do. So in summary, we've embraced all the challenges that the media world has thrown to us. We've got into beyond linear broadcasting. We've looked at digital. We've looked at events. We've looked at sports. We've looked at regional languages, and we've made tremendous headway in each of these sectors. That's all happened because we've kept the consumer first.
Absolutely. And there's so many products and services that is under the overarching Zee TV umbrella. Let's talk a little bit about that for those people who aren't as familiar. I am, but for those who aren't, let's talk a little bit about the different opportunities that people have to subscribe to, become a member of, and engage with the Zee TV world.
Absolutely. So we started out with linear television, linear TV channels as we know it. So that remains our mainstay, and we've got channels that operate. So we've got platforms in various markets where we are present and available, not just in Hindi, but we've got a very strong and arguably, I think, the most strongest success story in terms of regional languages. We are available in all the 4 South Indian languages. We are available in Punjabi, in Bengali, Oriya, Bhojpuri, Marathi. And I think that's an amazing bouquet of channels that's available on various platforms worldwide. We've got the direct-to-consumer digital platform called Zee5, where we've got more than 150 plus originals that we've put out there and stories of diversity. So that's the other touch point that we have. We've got social assets that we have created, and with tremendously high following on various platforms. So that's the other way in which we connect, where we have short form video to complement our long format content that we serve up. Yeah. We've got Zee Music, we've got movies, and we've got publishing on the net. So it's actually an all-encompassing bouquet if you really look at it.
Absolutely. Honestly, I really encourage people, if they haven't already subscribed to the world of Zee, that they really need to, because as you mentioned, Ashok, it's a 3-dimensional bouquet of wonderful content that people can explore. And I feel the other thing, Ashok, especially from my experience, long-time experience with Zee TV, you get to learn a lot about different subsects of our culture. You get to learn a lot about the different generations that perhaps you may not be. And I feel these are also ways to kind of bridge gaps and to kind of close gaps and to create a more inclusive community so that we can lift each other up within the silos of identity that we respect and we consider ourselves to be. You mentioned the different languages, that this whole regional approach, as well as going, deep and wide. This is really, I think, the big key that has Zee TV really at the forefront of any kind of, way that you can touch base with the South Asian community in all aspects. It's incredible. And I want to ask you this, because it's just a thought that I have that I'd love to have your opinion on. Do you feel, with all of the innovation and the kind of, vast diaspora of content that you guys serve to the community everywhere, do you feel that the advertising world get it? Do they understand truly? Because I kind of feel that they're a bit behind. And here we are, companies like yourself, vast media companies that truly focus on, the diaspora and the community wherever they may be, and ensuring that you are relevant with that community. I kind of feel a lot of the major corporations and advertisers are quite far behind that understanding. Has that been your experience?
So that's an interesting question, Raj. One that I've not really been asked too much. Look,
Well, I'm happy that I was able to give you a question that you haven't been asked.
yeah. No, look, as broadcasters, I believe that our role is also often to educate, multiple stakeholders. So whether it is distribution platforms, whether it is advertisers, whether it is our own consumers, there is a role that we play in terms of not just putting out our content and enticing viewers to come in and watch it, but also talking to them about where we come from, talking to them about, our homeland. And I was in London last week. We met up with five of our viewers. Incidentally, all of them were women, and all of them doing exceedingly well. They were, I think, all inspirational stories in their own right. But each of them talked about some very interesting thoughts. They said that India is such a diverse country. There is so much of art, culture, food, travel locations. And if you can showcase this, then it's a way of connecting back with the country. And that, when we kind of sat back and thought about it, it made so much sense. So it's not just about storytelling that happens inside a house or under a roof, but it's also about going out there and showcasing some of these things, because for a lot of our viewers who are spread out across the world, watching some of this content is a way of connecting back with their roots. That's so important. I mean, especially I think in the current times, this connecting back to your roots, I think is much more than what that simplicity of the phrase implies. So I would say that it's about how we talk about the diversity that we have. It's about how we educate advertisers that there is so much more to what we are bringing to the table, and that could be of tremendous value to them as well. That's the role that we need to play. And if we do that well, I think, then I think it's a win-win in terms of the partnership.
Absolutely. And whenever there's a win-win from a business standpoint, it's wonderful when the greatest win of all is that everyone is trying to get to the consumer, right? Because then you know that whatever is going on in that business exchange is really to ensure that you're relevant and you are seeing the community and where it's headed. And there's so much change happening, especially in North America. The South Asian community are really in a renaissance period. We are a part of every single industry in North America, very high level accomplishments, something that we've never seen before, and which even more so makes relevancy around making sure that the content is speaking to the audiences you're in. And that's something Zee does really well. Like, you're in these 5 different continents, you go in and you really try and understand the core heartbeat of the community and what they need and serve it. And I'd like to, just if there are any new properties, anything new that's going on in the world of Zee, I'd love for you to share that with us, Ashok, as we get ready to close off. Anything at all you want people to know that's coming down the pike?
Yes, lots. But but before I go into that, I must comment on what you just said. And before this conversation, I happened to log on to the Anokhi website and have a look at it. And there's a quote that you've got there which struck me as very interesting, which is that you're right. The diaspora is growing significantly in the North Americas. But the point that you made there, which is that they are also in positions of importance, positions where they can influence a lot of things. I think that counts for a lot, and I think that's something that people often kind of undervalue. For us, the North America is a significant market. What's interesting is that while the diaspora is increasing year on year, the mix of that diaspora is changing significantly, changing rapidly in terms of languages, in terms of age groups, in terms of socio-economic dispersion. There's a huge amount of change, and I think if you are able to recognize that, you will understand the sheer power that can give you in terms of the value that you can create. I'll give you 2 examples to answer your question in terms of what we are doing new and what I'm really excited about and what I think we are really looking forward to.
I'd love that.
Yes. Both of these, interestingly, are examples from our international business. So in the Middle East, about 4 years ago, we started something called co-production, which is basically a model where we partner with local partners to take the story from our library in India and then reimagine this for that particular market. So we take the story idea from a show that we have done and that has been successful in India. We bring it to that local market, reimagine it in terms of the storyline, in terms of the script, the characters, and produce this, which we then sell onwards to other broadcasters. So it's a pure play studio model, and we've done about 10 such co-productions, and we've now begun to experiment with that business idea. We just released our first Arabic movie in the Middle East.
Wow.
And it's now running successfully in the theaters in various countries in the Middle East. And that's something that's really innovative. It's the first from our stable, and we're really proud about it. So that's a model that we are looking to expand across geographies and take forward. So clearly, in line with the changing times, we're trying to do more from the Zee household. The other is post-pandemic, content has begun to travel. People have started saying that they are open to watching content in different languages, different cultures, whether it is subtitled, whether it's dubbed. We are beginning to see our content travel much, much more. And therefore, the content licensing business is something that we are very excited about, taking it to Latin America, taking it to parts of Europe, parts of Eastern Asia, etc. I think there's a huge opportunity there because people are so receptive, people are so appreciative of Indian content. It's wonderful to see.
Absolutely. So much to look forward to. It's almost like, you've had 30 years so far. And I feel that with all the innovation and everything that you guys have done, everywhere that you guys are, I have this feeling that it's still just a drop in the ocean as to kind of how expansive this opportunity truly could be as technology keeps, creating ways that we can share many more layers of identity as different communities around the world, right? I mean, I'm really excited about all the things, but there's one thing I wanted to ask you. As a professional yourself, when you started all those years ago to what you've learned today, what do you wish you had known back then that you feel could have maybe changed things, perhaps made things a little bit easier? Maybe you would have had the opportunity to have accomplished a lot of the things faster. I don't know. What advice do you wish, looking back, you would have had when you started?
I have a simple formula that I've kind of perfected over time. I think you've got to be two-faced in your approach when you build a career. On one side, you've got to listen to yourself intently and closely. Because, when you start out, you rarely ever know what you want to do, what you're going to be good at, and what you'll really enjoy doing. You can figure that out only when you are listening to yourself and deeply listening to yourself. So that's the inward-looking approach. The other is the outward-looking approach, which is you listen to others, and there you often undermine the value of a network, the value of relationships. So if I had to put it simply, I think success in the modern world depends on listening to yourself and hearing out what others have to say. And I think we often undermine the value of both. If I had to go back and replay this, I would do these two things much, much more actively.
Wise words. I absolutely agree with you. I mean, what a way to end off the interview. Ashok, I want to ask you, is there anything that we haven't touched upon that you feel you'd like to share with everyone before we say goodbye for today?
I think, you talked about how we are sitting on the tip of the iceberg. I think there is a lot more where all this is coming from. The media world is going to see exciting, wide-ranging changes that are going to happen. We've not even talked about technology or what interactivity, for example, or machine learning or artificial intelligence can do. I think, it's going to be a very exciting journey. I think this is one sector which, if you were to project 10 years into the future, is going to be completely different from the world that we know it today. And therefore, it's an exciting journey that we are embarking on. And I think this is a space that we should all watch out for.
Yeah, absolutely, Ashok. What a pleasure you are. Thank you so much for your words of wisdom and for us to just, be able to pull back the curtain a little bit with what's, the Zee story and why you guys are so relevant and so important to, keep us connected as a diaspora and also keep us connected to the subcontinent as well. Thank you so, so much for coming on. I really, really appreciated every second of chatting with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Raj. My pleasure.
Well, I'm so happy. So guys, these are the stories that make up the success of the South Asian community. It's why Anoki has been able to celebrate 20 years by telling stories just like this. For more on what transpired at Anoki 20, be sure to check in with Zee TV Canada, which will be airing so many special coverage moments. And for those of you who are not subscribed, go do it now. I'm telling you, you don't want to miss it. The coverage and what we did was absolutely sensational for our Canadian community. And for those of you who came out to celebrate with us, thank you so much for making our 20-year anniversary the success that it was. Here's to another 20 years and counting. And here's to another 30 years and counting for Zee TV. See you next week, guys, for another edition of Anoki Uncensored.